All right, well, I don't see anybody else joining, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I hope you had a wonderful day, and we look forward to hearing from you. First, we're going to start with a little Zoom orientation. So let me pull that up. Okay, so this is one of our first virtual meetings. We're all learning, so please bear with us. We're going to go over some of the basic controls to help you use Zoom meeting format before we start the presentation. Please note, this meeting is being recorded. It's being recorded on audio and video and will be posted on our website. If you do not wish to have your voice or likeness recorded, please turn your video camera off and refrain from asking questions using the audio option. Instead, you can submit your questions via the chat. All right, everybody is muted this evening. You cannot unmute yourself. We can unmute you during the question and answer and comment period. To request to speak, you'll need to raise your hand, and we'll go over those instructions in just a moment. Once we unmute you, you may still need to click on the little microphone to unmute yourself as well. If you've called in by telephone, you can unmute yourself by dialing *6, and we will unmute you. Your video camera is off by default this evening. To reduce the bandwidth of the meeting, we request that you please do not turn your camera on. If you have a question during the presentation, please send it via the chat. Okay, to send a question via the chat, please click chat in the bottom menu. You'll see the little menu bar along the bottom of your screen. If you do not have a chat icon, since some of us have different versions, please click more and then select chat. A new window will appear in which you can type your question and send it. If you'd like to speak to testify or ask a question, please raise your hand. To raise your hand, click on the participants icon in the bottom menu. A new menu will appear. Click the blue raised hand button, or again, if you have a different version, if there's no raise hand button, select the more button and click on the blue hands. If you've dialed in by phone, please press *9 on your telephone keypad. All right, you can change your view this evening, and to do so, click the up arrow next to Start Video, select Video Settings, and make sure Hide Non-Video Participants is checked. And that is the end of our short tutorial. Thank you so much for allowing us this. We will now begin the hearing.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, March 4th, 2021, and the time is approximately 7:10 p.m. My name is Jose Tamana, designee at this hearing for the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Here with me this evening to conduct this public hearing is also Mr. Andrew Bossy, Senior Engineer for Transportation Policy. Mr. Bossy will soon be providing the information and details regarding the analysis. I'd also like to recognize Council President Tom Hucker, who is here with us today. And also with us today is Mr. Jeru Bunde, Regional Director for the East County Regional Services Center, and Mr. Peter Fosselman, Master Plan Ombudsman for the White Oak Science Gateway Master Plan. As Lori mentioned, we have not had many virtual public hearings this past year and are still learning, so please bear with us if there are some technical difficulties. We're happy that you are joining us in this forum. Tonight's hearing is being recorded and will be posted in the coming days to the web page for the Local Area Transportation Improvement Program, or LATIP. Please note your video camera is turned off by default this evening to reduce the bandwidth for the meeting. We request that you do not turn it on, and likewise, your microphones have also been muted. Once the testimony portion of this hearing begins, those who have signed up to testify will be called on and unmuted when it is your turn to speak. If you have not signed up to testify but wish to do so, please raise your hand using the instructions that Lori just provided to all of us. Or you could also go to the participants icon at the bottom of the screen if you joined after Lori's instructions. And you should see an icon that says more. And then once you click on that, you should see a hand icon to raise your hand. If you are joining us via telephone only today, please press *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. You may raise your hand at any time during the testimony portion. We will call on you to provide your oral testimony and unmute your microphone when it is your turn to speak. Once called on to speak, you will also need to click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself, or dial *6 on your telephone keypad if you have joined by telephone. Written testimony and comments may also be submitted and will be considered with the same weight as oral testimony. Tonight's hearing is being held pursuant to Section 49-53 of the Montgomery County Code. The sole purpose of this hearing is to present the analysis and allow you to provide comments and suggestions which may affect the treatments that are ultimately included in an update to the local area transportation improvement program. Your comments should be focused entirely on the findings of the Hillandale analysis and its recommendations for an amendment to the local area transportation improvement program. All interested persons are entitled to be heard at this hearing. However, the testimony portion for this hearing is not a forum for dialogue, questions and answers, or cross-examination. Please direct your remarks to the Hillandale analysis that is the subject of this hearing. If your comments stray into areas not related to this project, I will ask that you refocus your comments to the subject project. Following the conclusion of this public hearing, the record will remain open for 2 weeks to allow any person who was unable to attend this hearing an opportunity to have their comments included into the public record and be fully considered. The official closing date by which all comments and testimony must be received is Thursday, March 18, 2021 at 7 p.m. Submissions should be emailed to Andrew Bossy at the following email address: andrew.bossy@montgomerycountymd.gov. The comments must be received by the close of the hearing record on March 18th. After this hearing is concluded and the record is officially closed, I, as hearing officer, will thoroughly review and weigh all comments and testimony submitted to the public record and will make a recommendation to the Director of the Department of Transportation, Mr. Christopher Conklin, for his decision as to the Hillandale area treatments to be included in the amendment to the White Oak Local Area Transportation Improvement Program. And now, to discuss the analysis in more detail is Mr. Andrew Bossy. Andrew?
Yes, hello, my name, good evening, Mr. Tamana, Council President, speakers, those listening in. I'm Andrew Bossy with the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. The subject of this evening's public hearing is to consider the findings of a follow-up analysis focused on Hillandale. To provide some background, in 2017, the original Local Area Transportation Improvement Program, or LATIP, was approved by the County Council, and this essentially treated the entire White Oak plan area as if it were a single development. It identified the transportation needs in order to achieve target vehicle metrics. It found the total cost for those needs, and then it assessed that as a cost, assessed that cost as a fee on all new development. As part of this work, however, The transportation needs of the New Hampshire Avenue and Powder Mill Road intersection was not finalized, and a placeholder cost was assigned pending further analysis. In 2018, that follow-up analysis was completed, and many here may remember its associated public hearing, the findings of which are available on the LATIP webpage. Based on the feedback received and findings of that public hearing, the following were approved in the 2018 for inclusion in the LATIP. That's the widening of the west leg of Powder Mill Road at New Hampshire Avenue and extending the westbound right turn lane on Powder Mill Road at New Hampshire Avenue. And you can see those on the screen toward the left side of the top left and bottom left. The public hearing deferred consideration of the slip ramp, recognizing the community's concerns and interest in a more detailed and comprehensive analysis of alternative options, as well as greater consideration of cut-through traffic through the Hillandale neighborhood. That takes us to where we are today. Before us tonight is this additional analysis focused on how to meet the transportation adequacy metrics, looking at options both with and without a slip ramp, and also including information on cut-through traffic. The technical summary and analysis on the LATIP webpage provides more detailed information, and I will see about posting the link to the Zoom chat once I finish speaking. The analysis finds that signal timing adjustments alone may just barely achieve the transportation adequacy metrics. There is not a significant cost for that work. The analysis finds that there are some additional treatments which may significantly reduce vehicular delay. These include adding a northbound right turn lane from New Hampshire onto Powder Mill, extending the southbound right turn from New Hampshire Avenue onto the outer loop of the Capitol Beltway, and reallocating the left turn space between Powder Mill Road and Elton to give more room for northbound left turns from New Hampshire onto Powder Mill Road. And those three you can see running left and right along the center of the screen. The cost for these three treatments is about $2,354,000. And accounting also for the future BRT line, everything may require an additional 10 feet of right-of-way from each side of New Hampshire Avenue beyond existing right-of-way expectations. A diagram showing these three items is included, what you see on the screen here, is included in the materials on the LATIP webpage. Tonight, we are particularly interested in hearing feedback on whether you feel the signal timing adjustments alone are adequate, or if you feel up to the three recommended treatments are preferable to further reduce vehicular delay. There are a few other things in the analysis that I do want to call attention to before we start up the testimony. The definition of transportation adequacy for this work is based on the 2016 subdivision staging policy. Last November, the council approved the growth and infrastructure policy, which is the spiritual successor to the subdivision staging policy. And I expect the next scheduled reanalysis of LATIP, which is scheduled in 2023, will incorporate that new policies, the growth and infrastructure policy, will incorporate those methodology and metrics. This analysis before us tonight builds on information stemming from the initial 2017 analysis. It does not consider the increased development density of the Hillandale Gateway project, which was approved only very recently. It also does not include the FDA expansion included in GSA's master plan update, the details of which were just only becoming available as this analysis was underway. So when considering the options here, be mindful that with the next scheduled 2023 reanalysis of the entire LATIP, there may be more traffic that is not yet accounted for in this study based on this newer information. I have received many questions about how this accounts for pedestrians, bicyclists, and BRT. All LATIP projects will conform with our standards, and I'll call attention to our draft Complete Streets Design Guide, which I am also the project manager for DOT in a partnership with Montgomery Planning, and I'll post a link to this also in the chat when I finish speaking. In that guide, when that draft Complete Streets Design Guide, you'll see the direction our new standards will be going. They'll be much more friendly to pedestrians and much more friendly to bicyclists. Whatever is built into Hillandale, it is our expectation that it will include landscape buffers between the sidewalk and the street. It will include separated bike lanes on each side as per the bicycle master plan. At the intersection, it will include countdowns and accessible signals, which are the beeping sounds you hear at the corners. Pedestrian ramps will be aligned with the receiving ramps, and crosswalks will be high visibility. This does not change, however, that before you are options that include additional lanes, and those additional lanes do come with an impact to pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users. That's more crossing distance for people to cross, and it promotes an environment that feels auto-centric. This is why in my technical report on the webpage, I included some narrative toward the pedestrian level of comfort metric that is being developed as part of the ongoing pedestrian master plan. I hope that helps inform others' testimony tonight. To speak toward BRT, BRT is not itself part of LATIP, and the New Hampshire BRT is also not yet in design. but I do seek to ensure that anything being considered here does not necessarily preclude a BRT. This is why the technical report, in its estimation of right-of-way needs, includes dimensions for a reversible transit lane and up to 2 transit buffers as per the master plan. Next, I want to speak about an item of particular interest to many people listening in, and is ultimately what prompted this more focused analysis in the first place at New Hampshire and Powder Mill. The analysis finds that the slip ramp opposite Elton does not provide significant benefit insofar as achieving the transportation adequacy metrics. To be clear, this means LATIP is not considering a slip ramp at this time. No other state nor county effort is currently considering the slip ramp. The next time where you may expect that this could come up again would be with the 2023 complete reanalysis of LATIP, but I'll probably still be involved with that at that time. And the analysis will focus on non-slip ramp alternatives first. And all of the cut-through concerns that have been raised these past years, decades really, will be at the front of that effort. As for those cut-through concerns, the analysis includes significant information on cut-through traffic in the Hillandale neighborhood, but with the findings that the slip ramp is not needed for transportation adequacy, there's no longer an LATIP specific nexus to cut-through traffic. That's not to say those cut-through concerns are not themselves important. We want to call attention that the 2018 public hearing approved traffic calming along Elton Road, and the Duffy companies, which you'll hear from representatives tonight, they soon thereafter constructed those treatments. Related to that cut-through traffic, our analysis also looked at traffic congestion along Maryland Route 212, that's Riggs Road, in the vicinity of Powder Mill Road and the driveway for the Adelphi Research Lab. There are some potential treatments that were identified, and we have shared this information with the State Highway Administration and Prince George's Department of Public Works and Transportation. But again, that is beyond the purview of the LATIP and also outside the jurisdiction of Montgomery County, but those treatments could address the congestion and therefore some of the cut-through traffic that is out there today. With that, I remind that the most substantive decisions we are seeking feedback on tonight are whether the signal timing adjustments alone are acceptable to the community, or if the community is interested in the additional treatments at the New Hampshire and Powder Mill intersection that would further reduce vehicular delay. I expect there may also be feedback on the analysis itself, and if we find that that feedback is substantial enough, that could potentially open the door to even more analysis. I'll admit that's not my hope, as many of you have known me for about 15 years now. But we'll see what we hear tonight and what we receive in written testimony. Thank you all for joining us this evening. And with that, I will turn things back over to Mr. Tamana.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bossy. We will now hear testimony from those in attendance who wish to testify. Again, to testify, please click on the status icon at the menu bar and raise your hand. The icon should be at the bottom of your screen after participants. If you click that, there should be a link that says more, and then you should be able to raise your hand from there. Or if you're on the phone, you do need to press *9 to raise your hand. Once given speaking rights, please clearly provide your name and address for the record prior to beginning your testimony. Because of the significant interest in this project and the number of attendees at this hearing who wish to speak, it'll be necessary to enforce a 3-minute time limit for every testimony. I'm requesting all presentations taking longer than 3 minutes be summarized so as to comply with the time constraints and provide a full written testimony to submit into the record. These submissions will be fully considered along with the oral testimony heard here today. With that, Lori, do you want to start?
Yes. First, we're going to hear from Councilmember Hucker.
Hey, Lori.
Hi.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks so much to Joe's and Andrew and Lori and everybody at MCDOT for inviting me to the public hearing. Thanks again to Ombudsman Fosselman and our tireless East County Director, Jeru Bande, for all their hard work for Hillandale. It's really great to see so many old friends in the participants list. Look, I'm very proud to represent this district, and I'm excited that there are a lot of good things happening in Hillandale and a lot of good things that weren't happening just a few years ago, and more are on the way. But in my opinion, they aren't happening quickly enough. Economic development and renovated Hillandale Local Park and other improvements are on the way. But we have to continue to focus on our transportation challenges in order to facilitate more progress in all these other areas. This area of New Hampshire Avenue is extremely important because the whole White Oak and East County area depends on it. Pedestrian safety is paramount in this area. It was designed decades ago, of course, for car traffic and really nothing else. And yet it's used more and more by pedestrians and cyclists, and more people in their cars continue to tell us in focus groups and polls and community meetings that they would rather walk and bike places, but it's not safe. So we want to be responsive to that. We want to re-engineer things to make it safer for everyone, whether or not you're using your car. And the improvements that we have in mind will facilitate connectivity with the neighborhoods nearby and allow for more economic development, because we want people who are working in Hillandale and White Oak to be able to live close by in Hillandale and White Oak. This whole area, like most of East County, has been really neglected, in my opinion, for too long by the state and the county. I'm really glad that our staff have done such hard work on this, and that we're having a hearing like this and updating the LATIP. You know, we have terrible things like trucks jumping onto the curb to turn around at New Hampshire Avenue and Powder Mill just to get on the Beltway. The solutions you're going to hear about tonight can help address that and protect pedestrians in this corridor. We all deserve safe roadways, whether we're walking or biking or driving. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the end goal of this whole process, including all the public participation. And I know people all over the DMV and the rest of Montgomery County and Prince George's County that use this area will benefit from your hard work and your participation tonight as well. Thank you for all your participation. And I know there's so many people who have been fighting for a better Hillandale for decades in some cases. So let me thank you again for all your activism. I wish I could stay longer, but in 3 minutes, I'm supposed to be chairing the county council's hearing tonight, which would normally be on Rockville, but it's on Zoom like everything else. But my senior legislative aide, Upneat Atwal, I want you to meet him. He's here. You can wave, Upneat. He's our lead on transportation and economic development issues. He's here and could stay for the meeting. And I already put my office number, my cell phone, and my email in the chat. So please reach out with any of your suggestions or your complaints after the meeting or in the future. Thank you all for your advocacy. Thanks again to DOT, and stay in close touch. Thanks.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Dan Wilhelm. Dan, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, I'm Dan Wilhelm. I live at 904 Cannon Road. I'm president of the Greater Colesville Citizens Association. Overall, the report is entirely inadequate and fails to address the current congestion and other traffic-related problems in Hillandale. Before I go on, I've submitted my testimony back in January, and Andrew should have that. If not, then let me know. Anyway, the single most important issue 2 years ago was cut-through traffic. The report makes reference to origin destination data being collected, but fails to identify where to find that data, how to interpret it, identify conclusions, or use them in developing recommended actions. OD data is provided from Riggs Road to New Hampshire Avenue, but not the reverse direction. Even from Riggs Road, the data shows that the cut-through traffic does not use Elton Road and would not use the slip ramp if installed. Only 4 vehicles use Elton Road to reach New Hampshire Avenue southbound, and then only in the AM. The report concludes on page 21 that the slip ramp, if installed, would only decrease the delay at Powder Mill by 2 seconds in the AM peak and 1 second in the PM peak. It goes on to say that this is based on modeling where Elton Road is restricted, namely blocked, at the edge of the commercial area. That restriction forces all the residents to use Powder Mill Road, which needlessly adds more traffic to the intersection. The study doesn't consider the situation where the slip ramp is added, but there is no restriction. Since the OD data shows no cut-through traffic that would use the slip ramp, an Elton Road restriction is not justified. The report fails to conduct a New Hampshire Avenue corridor study between Powder Mill and at least Delphi Road. Traffic data is collected for Oakview, but is not used to draw any conclusions. The slip ramp and approved changes to Powder Mill Road, the ones back 2 years ago, should substantially affect the traffic at Oakview, Adelphi, and farther south. The report proposes a new right turn lane northbound on New Hampshire Avenue to address 2040 congestion, but fails to acknowledge and address existing severe congestion at this point. Public testimony in 2017 pointed that out and indicated a substantial percentage of the right lane capacity is negated from stop WMATA buses. At the time, the suggestion was to combine WMATA bus stop with the ride-on bus stop by Safeway. It would go a long way to addressing that problem. The report doesn't address this subject. The report proposes extending New Hampshire Avenue right turn lane to the outer loop, but fails to provide any justification. Since this is the location of the BRT station, it fails to consider that. Any changes in that area should wait for the New Hampshire Avenue BRT design, which is scheduled to start next fiscal year, which will be this fall. The report recommends extending New Hampshire Avenue northbound left turn lane on Powder Mill Road, but fails to address the truck turning issue or adequately address the reduction in traffic if the slip ramp is installed. In conclusion, there's much more detail in the report that we provided. Anyway, we oppose the 3 recommended new changes. We don't think they're necessary. What we would still recommend, and this is what we did 2 years ago, is the slip ramp has a major benefit to the area, and also removing the WMATA bus stop, which is right next to Powder Mill, and use the one that's only a little over 100 feet away at the Safeway. That would eliminate a lot of the congestion that's already on New Hampshire and backs up New Hampshire northbound in the evening, at least a mile back. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, we have Eileen Finnegan. Eileen, can you unmute yourself?
Am I good?
You are.
Well, thank you. And good evening to all. I am Eileen Finnegan. I live at 10404 Sweetbriar Parkway in the Hillandale area. And I intimately know this area, have lived here for quite some time, but I've also been part of the White Oak Science Gateway Master Plan. I want to thank DOT for commissioning this study. I applaud the recommendation to not proceed with the Elton Road slip ramp. This connection was not supported in the master plan and would have serious consequences for the bi-county Hillandale Forest neighborhood. I trust that this option will be put to rest. As an overarching comment regarding New Hampshire, I urge DOT to make a firm commitment to prioritizing ample, not just minimal, but ample right-of-way for the much-needed BRT. Planning for this line will begin later this year. This reversible median BRT must be efficient and speedy with well-placed median stations from White Oak to Fort Totten. The future success of the New Hampshire Avenue corridor depends on this BRT. Now for the 3 specific items. Regarding the northbound right turn lane at Powder Mill, since the shopping center property is projected to be redeveloped during the life of the master plan, and the added density is part of this very analysis, the acquisition of this right-of-way should be part of a future development process and acquired at no cost. Paying for this right-of-way, as is suggested in the estimates, would set a dangerous precedent for this LATIP and other pending unified mobility programs. The second item is the extended southbound right turn lane from Powder Mill to 495 West. Given the newly dedicated 84 feet to center line right-of-way along the Hillandale Gateway frontage, this appears to be feasible. But DOT and SHA must consider the potentially significant additional vehicle movements associated with the Hillandale Gateway's private road. This is an entrance exit very close to the 495 West ramp. A hawk signal should be added to the cost estimate to improve the pedestrian crossing at the ramp. The third item is the extended northbound left turn lane from New Hampshire to Powder Mill. The added stacking will accommodate approved and future development. It is imperative, however, that the median BRT give priority over vehicle stacking. An attractive...
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're at the 3 minutes. If you could kind of wrap it up a little bit.
I will. An
Thank
attractive
you.
barrier prohibiting pedestrians from mid-block crossings is necessary. 2 additional very quick items. The issue of the Coke trailer trucks making U-turns at Powder Mill needs to be put to rest. Coke established a warehouse facility in Hanover, Maryland in April 2017, and all shipments come and go from that facility without U-turns. The relocation of the bus stop on the northbound New Hampshire at Powder Mill to the far side of the intersection is being considered and underway. That needs to be reviewed before implementation. Are longer walks what we want for transit users? Sorry, I ran over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers?
Okay, we have Shane Pollan. Shane, can you unmute yourself?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good evening. For the record, my name is Shane Pollan. I'm the principal of PS Ventures. I live on Rolling House Road in Rockville, Maryland. I'm speaking on behalf of PS Ventures, the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County, and the Duffy family. Again, the only reason we're here tonight even talking about any of this is because the Duffy family and HOC have a desire to mitigate the impacts of the developments in Hillandale. As you know, years ago, after the adoption of the LATIP, we commissioned the study that was trying to find practical, implementable solutions to congestion in Hillandale. We identified 3 improvements. One of them was the slip ramp. We went through a years-long process, having our study evaluated and ultimately validated by both MCDOT and MDSHA. Then MCDOT decided to create the public process where the community feedback was solicited, also before the same examiner we have tonight. While over 70% of the respondents were in favor of the slip ramp, the immediate Hillandale community expressed a legitimate concern about cut-through traffic associated with the ramp. They made clear that cut-through from Riggs to Elton was already a problem and that would only get worse. Notwithstanding support for the ramp, the examiner recommended adoption of only 2 of the improvements, not the ramp. Specifically, the ramp was not adopted in 2019 because, in the words of this hearing examiner, quote, the full-scale impacts to the community have not been adequately evaluated, including attention towards how existing congestion along Maryland 212 induces cut-through traffic. The study that we are here commenting on tonight, 2 years later, was to be that evaluation. Yet, as you've heard others testify, this document does not evaluate or remarkably even fully quantify the existing cut-through traffic on Elton Road. Nor does the study evaluate the, quote, further measures which could be taken to address cut-through traffic through the neighborhood, end quote, as the hearing examiner had requested. Instead, the report reflects the results of a single mitigation, and that is the simple closure of Elton Road and the resultant diversion of traffic sufficient to offset the clear benefit of the ramp. Worse yet, in order to show the improvements in the performance even close to that of the ramp, the study recommends widening New Hampshire Avenue by adding 2 lanes. So with a focus on Vision Zero and pedestrian safety, this study recommends adding 2 more lanes to an already challenged intersection for pedestrians to cross. Does it make sense? Oh, and even worse is the fact that the proposed widening does not appear to be possible without taking land from adjacent shopping center, which is unlikely to happen for decades. Those properties are subject to long-term leases. Importantly, even if the false choice of only these two options rather than an evaluation of the cut-through mitigations, other mitigations, which is what the hearing examiner had recommended 2 years ago, the choice would still be clear. We can either do a widening, which is going to do nothing to address existing cut-through traffic. Then we can either wait for the shopping center to redevelop, at which case the land would be dedicated, or initiate a taking. And then once that happens in a couple of decades, we can add 2 lanes to New Hampshire Avenue, making it even more challenging to cross the street at the location of what we hope will be a pedestrian-rich future BRT station, where there is a mixed-use residential development across the street from walkable amenities. Yep, I'm finishing up.
That's time, sorry.
Okay, so the other choice is the slip ramp. We ask you tonight to respectfully, we've waited 2 years, we can wait longer. Let's do the study that the hearing examiner requested 2 years ago and actually evaluate alternative mitigations so that we can have both improved transportation for vehicles and pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, next we have N. Dryben. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. For the record, this is Nick Dribbin. I'm an Associate Vice President with Lenhart Traffic Consulting, and our business address is 641 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard, Suite 214, Severna Park, Maryland, 21146. The purpose of my testimony is to provide comments on the transportation planning analysis and associated technical summary, collectively referred to as the documents for the sake of brevity within my testimony. The testimony tonight is prepared on behalf of the Duffy Companies, PS Ventures LLC, and the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County, who requested that Lenhart Traffic review the documents and provide comments on their behalf. I've been involved in traffic analyses for the subject's transportation improvement projects in the Hillandale area for nearly 5 years. My firm's involvement dates back to the inception of the White Oak Local Area Transportation Improvement Program, LATIP, which was the original impetus leading to tonight's public hearing and the transportation changes being discussed herein. In addition, in my role at Lenhart Traffic, I've been the lead for transportation analyses for various development projects in the area, including the Hillandale Gateway project. Prior to my time at Lenhart Traffic, I served as a lead reviewer for traffic impact studies in the Maryland State Highway Administration's Access Management Division, where my role was to review and provide comments on studies of a similar scale and nature as that contained in the document. With respect to the analysis contained in the documents, I've conducted a thorough review, and my finding is that at best, the documents lack the clarity needed in several key areas to fully understand and evaluate the assumptions of the analysis. At worst, the documents contain fundamental flaws that likely invalidate the conclusions presented. I have previously transmitted a detailed comment letter regarding the documents to Mr. Andrew Bossy, dated February 22nd, 2021, which was to be entered into the record for tonight's hearing. The letter included a total of 18 major comments on the documents and highlights a number of issues with the potential to either alter the basic interpretation and understanding of the documents and or to fundamentally alter the results and findings of the analysis. And as such, we have requested that DOT provide detailed responses and updates to their analysis in order to address these comments. While it is neither necessary nor possible for me to explain the details behind all 18 major comments in the time allotted for my testimony tonight, I believe that I will attempt to highlight what I believe to be the fundamental flaws of the analysis contained in the documents. At a high level, one of the primary reasons for the county study, if not the primary reason, was to understand the degree to which cut-through traffic was affecting Elton Road under existing conditions, and how such cut-through traffic might change with the addition of the proposed Elton Road slip ramp. The need for this analysis grew out of a series of public involvement sessions during which community members repeatedly voiced concerns regarding existing cut-through traffic. In response, the county's Department of Transportation developed an array of potential options to reduce or mitigate the cut-through traffic. However, due to a lack of available data at the time regarding the actual volume of cut-through traffic, these alternatives were not able to be evaluated. Therefore, in order to provide further information with respect to this citizen-identified issue, the county undertook the analysis contained in the documents. The analysis in the documents took more than a year to complete. However, miraculously, it does not include a single reference to the actual volume of cut-through traffic along Elton Road. In fact, there is no discussion whatsoever in the documents regarding how the origin destination data collected for the study was utilized. The county's analysis contained in the documents fails to provide any useful information regarding the exact question it set out to answer, specifically, what is the volume of cut-through traffic along Elton Road? Instead, the documents draw flawed conclusions based on old or missing data coupled with assumptions regarding cut-through traffic that are not substantiated by any of the data collected for the study. Our letter to Montgomery County DOT contains specific details supporting this statement, and it is my conclusion after my thorough review of this study that the analysis contained in the documents do not support the conclusion that the slip ramp does not provide benefit. Instead, as the author of the original studies evaluating the slip ramp, I remain confident of the benefit of the slip ramp in improving operations at the intersection of Maryland 650 and Powder Mill Road. Let us not forget the studies previously completed. Okay, I'm wrapping up. The studies previously completed by Lenhart Traffic, which included the recommendation for the slip ramp, were reviewed and approved by both the Montgomery County Department of Transportation and the Maryland State Highway Administration. These studies showed clear benefit of the recommended slip ramp, and the flawed analyses used to make the opposite determination in the documents are inadequate to change the correctly drawn engineering conclusion that the slip ramp addresses the existing and future operational issues at the intersection of Maryland 650 and Powder Mill Road more effectively than any other alternative, particularly when taking into account the need to accommodate all users of the transportation system in the area, including pedestrians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nick.
Do we have any other speakers? Is there anybody else that would like to provide testimony at this time? Not hearing anybody, so I'm going to give everybody a chance. If you're on the phone trying to go through the options, or if you want to put something in the chat, if you cannot raise your hand for some reason so that we know that you're trying to do that. I want to make sure I give everybody an opportunity.
We have a comment from Rachel Evans, who states that it took 20 minutes to repeat the instructions on how to conduct Zoom, and that people testifying should be given at least 5 minutes per person so that they are not rushed.
Okay.
I do apologize. With so many people registered for this hearing, we set the 3-minute limit thinking that we would have an abundance of people that wanted to testify, and we do have a 2-hour limit this evening. So
well, if there is nobody else that wants to testify, if somebody wants to come back and maybe say a couple of more words, we can definitely do that. Give you a couple more minutes to finish your thoughts if somebody wants to do that. I would ask that you raise your hand again if you would like to.
okay. Shane would like to speak again.
Okay.
Shane Poland again. So I just want to make something clear, which is that we also heard the community loud and clear, and that there's a concern about cut-through traffic. And I want to make it clear that what we're suggesting is not that the slip ramp come in without traffic mitigation to address cut-through traffic. So I think what we're asking is that we get what the community has asked for, what you, the hearing examiner, asked for, right? And what we're asking for now, which is a real evaluation of how we can get the benefit of the ramp, which is material, without incurring the negative impact through the community. We agree. We don't want to create a cut-through situation. But the reality is that the ramp can add material benefit, right, to the flow of traffic, and is not just a volume mitigation, which with the widening is really going to address volume. But it's not going to address providing another form of connectivity. It's not just tractor trailers from Coke who might have made U-turns there. It's other vehicles who make U-turns at Powder Mill Road, because there's no other choice if you want to travel west and you're coming from this area. So again, I think there's alignment with the community that we all want to say we don't want cut through traffic. That's what this study was supposed to do. And somehow with all of the origin and destination data, the most fundamental question about the nature of the cut through and what's inducing it somehow didn't get analyzed. And so we just ask that there be enough time to maybe you have the data and just haven't had time to look at it. But that was the purpose of this study, and it isn't there. And we don't want to put in place mitigations that are going to take years, if ever, to be implemented, right? So whether it's taken through a redevelopment that happens in 20 years or not is not going to help the folks on the ground today in the short term. And we hope that if we can put some implementable solutions in place, that we can really materially improve the transportation situation again for all modes. So we're all in alignment, and we thank you for this time.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Wilhelm.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd just like to amplify on what Shane said. The study does show, it only shows half the OD data. It shows from Riggs Road to New Hampshire. It doesn't show the other direction. So based on the limited data, there is a lot of cut through, but it's not on Elton Road. It goes on, get the right name of the road here. It's Green Forest Road. There's a lot of cut through that way. And we think there's a lot of cut through in through the shopping center. And there's also, my report, I did a amount of, it looks like a lot of traffic that goes south and tries to do a U-turn to get onto the Beltway going farther south. And that messes up traffic. And I think it adds to the cut through. You know, I can't prove this, but I think it adds more to the cut through than, because people are using Riggs Road when they could be using New Hampshire Avenue, and New Hampshire Avenue is so bottled up. And you know, I used to drive that every day, 5 days a week, and it would take me 20 minutes to do a mile. So it's really bad. And you know, all this, your study shows there's no congestion, which is a bunch of malarkey. So you need to look at the conditions out there, which the study did not do. So anyway, you know, I just like to amplify, there is a cut through problem, but not on Elton Way the way it is. I'm surprised that more people don't do that, but you know, it's not there today. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, we have Eileen Finnegan. Eileen, can you unmute yourself?
Am I on?
You are.
Well, I don't want this to be a tit for tat, but I do want to thank DOT for doing this study and for not recommending the Elton slip ramp. This has been a long-standing issue. I think all three of us who have talked, and Andrew and some others that are listed as participants, are well aware of the very long history of this particular suggestion. The one thing I want to bring about to people's knowledge is on page 2 of this short report, agency comments. And the agency comments from SHA, I think actually, I believe it was SHA, really reinforced the fact that that slip ramp is not the ultimate. What we really need to do is move people into transit. And so as we come forward with the BRT study, which is to begin shortly, and eventually coming with a robust plan, which can then be evaluated with the 23 redo of the LATIP, I think that will serve the community best. That some prolonged discussion of the slip ramp at this time is not going to provide the clarity and the resolution that we all want. We want the New Hampshire Avenue corridor to be successful, but we need to have that to be a walkable, rollable corridor. And I look forward to both the BRT study and the future 2023 LATIP to put that into perspective. So right now, I think the timing improvements help, And I do believe that the additional stacking for cars making the left onto westbound Powder Mill make a lot of sense. I think that the county should make sure that that added lane going onto the Beltway westbound is safe, because I see a lot of traffic coming out of that new Hillandale Gateway private road as being impactful. So I do believe that DOT should be moving forward to tweak some of their recommendations and put that to bed for this particular edition of the LATIP. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kay McGraw and Carolyn Byerly. Can you unmute yourselves?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We live in the Knollwood section of Hillandale, which is in Prince George's.
I'm sorry, this is the court reporter who is speaking.
Kay McGraw.
Thank you.
Okay. We totally object to that flyway, whatever you want to call it, going over from Elton Road over to the Beltway. That is totally unacceptable. Right now, we have all kinds of traffic coming through our neighborhood, ripping through our neighborhood to try and avoid the traffic on Riggs Road and Powder Mill. If you allow that, what do you call it, the flyway, whatever, to go in, we will have people turning from both directions on Riggs Road to get over to it. You are going to destroy that neighborhood that is on Elton Road and Wooded Way. You're going to totally destroy it. There are no sidewalks there now for the people to walk, and it's very dangerous right now. And so to put something else there that allows trucks and everybody else to go down and take a shortcut to the Beltway is totally unacceptable. It's dangerous. So that should not even be being considered. It's nice that Duffy has all the money in the world to try and put this project forward. He has before, they have before, but it's totally unacceptable. It's going to make our whole neighborhood fall apart. We've got too much traffic on Powder Mill and Riggs Road now. So something needs to be done about that. I don't care whether it's roundabouts or whatever. Roundabouts are good. They use them in Europe. But we need not to put some kind of connection to the Beltway from Elton Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Okay, and that was our last.
Okay. So if there is nobody else that would like to provide any testimony, I think we can move forward. So thank you all, everybody that did provide testimony, and seeing that everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity to do so, this concludes the oral testimony portion of the public hearing. As I said before, we will keep the record open for 2 weeks with comments and written testimony due by Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. Additional written testimony may be submitted by email and must be received by the close of this hearing record. Submissions should be sent to Andrew Bossy. His email is also in the chat box, but I will say, read his email out too. It's Andrew Bossy, andrew.bossy@montgomerycountymd.gov. Thank you, and this public hearing is now concluded.
I do have one question for you from the chat.
Okay.
Mark Sine, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Has there been any discussions or studies to consider widening the lanes on New Hampshire Avenue? Is this something that is under consideration?
I can take that. Andrew Bossy, Montgomery County DOT. Widening the lanes would not be part of LATIP. That really doesn't have a substantial effect on the intersection metrics that, as they are measured under the policies that are in place. That's the subdivision staging policy from 2016. Also with the Complete Streets Design Guide in its current draft, it's also, again, it's generally going toward narrower lanes to slow traffic, and it doesn't have a humongous effect on capacity, at least not as it's measured by the council policies. So not as part of LATIP at this time.
Okay, that's the last question I have. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, Shane asks, is the 10-foot you are proposing on either side in addition to the dedication reflected on the Hillandale Gateway plan?
That is, if you look at page 4 of the technical summary, it spells out the right-of-way needs based on, it's actually also from the Complete Streets Design Guide's dimensions for all the different parts of what would be in there, the different lanes, the sidewalks, the buffers, the transit lane. It does not have any consideration at all of what the actual right-of-way dedications are. This is just purely, here is what is needed, independent of whatever has been dedicated. So the costs that are listed in the cost estimate, I mean, that was just used as part of trying to get this information together. I can take a closer look at what has been dedicated and see if that affects the cost estimate. We'll also see if it may make sense that the cost estimate really is zero. Presume that this, we'll see if it gets built as part of future redevelopment or if it be its own project, and how right-of-way might, whether it should or should not be a cost in the estimate. That'll be weighed as part of the hearing.
Okay, great. I do not see any more questions. Oh, actually, a couple more just popped up. Why was Hillandale Gateway volume not included in the study?
It uses the analysis uses the basically the master plan's zoning as a base. Of course, Hillandale Gateway was going through an approval process at the same time as this analysis was ongoing, including the additional density as part of, I think it's additional MPDUs, but that information just was not available as the analysis was being performed.
Okay, and next from Margot Hall, we have, is there any information on the negative impact of the cut-through traffic on the residents, entry and exit from their properties?
Not particularly. So again, the analysis, the more detailed part, not so much the technical summary, does have some information on the cut-through traffic. It's not, as others called out, it's not the most detailed because the initial focus of the analysis was first to see, are there other alternatives to a slip ramp that could make sense? And really that came out of the previous public hearing, is looking at the New Hampshire and Powder Mill intersection. Could there be more treatments at the intersection that could work instead of a slip ramp? And if the answer was no, and the slip ramp did still make sense, then that next step would have been, okay, what can be done regarding cut-through traffic? But it ended up being that there was an option that was found at Powder Mill in New Hampshire. And that's where we have data, and it's included in the analysis and in the appendices. And if it's not in what I had packaged and put on the website, I want to check that after the hearing and make sure that whatever we have is on the website. But there's the information that's out there, and of course, the cut-through, because we're not doing a slip ramp, that cut-through traffic isn't now part of LATIP specifically. Not to say it's still a concern, and that can be handled separately, but it's just not part of this specific program as it's directed by council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that is the last question we have. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Lori, I have a question, which actually came to me via text message. The slip ramp used to exist in that exact location several years ago. I don't have the history. Does anyone know why it was removed?
It was back, I think, in the 90s, and I believe it came out either toward the late 90s or early 2000s. I know there are some on this call. You know, Pete, send Pete a message, because I've heard there's competing ideas about the why, and I don't know the why myself. The state might actually have that answer, but I don't know myself. Other than I've heard that it was part of construction and it was removed when the construction was done. I have heard some that said it was permanent, and I don't know if it was, why it was removed. But I know of those on the call who have feedback as they share it with Pete, and then you'll have that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, Margot has a comment. She states, if the emphasis is only on the traffic, data should be collected as well as discussions on safety of additional lanes and damage to the properties of homeowners. And then we have another question from Lily Richard Brown. Has anyone heard the numerous objections from the community regarding the slip ramp?
Yes, that is why we are here today. And in 2018, that was also a very prominent part of that discussion.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? Oh, we have a hand. Kay McGraw, would you like to unmute yourself?
Okay. I have another observation, and that is that a lot of the traffic that's coming and going onto Powder Mill Road is from the Army Research Center, and they turn on Floral Drive. I don't know why this is still being permitted when there is a road that would take them out on Cherry Hill Road. And so that's something else that perhaps hasn't been looked at. And so we don't necessarily need the light that's there on Floral Drive or to reduce the amount of traffic that's backed up there. If the Army Research Center would consider letting all of their employees enter and exit out onto Cherry Hill Road, that would help a lot. There's no reason why they need to go out on Powder Mill Road. There really is not. And so that is one big barrier there on Powder Mill Road and reason for the traffic. Again, I think roundabouts might be helpful in a lot of places if you haven't considered them. It's like in the game, but the slip ramp is an absolutely awful idea. It's going to ruin our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. And that is all we have for now.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And we can go ahead and close the public hearing. This public hearing is now concluded.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Jose, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And Lori, before I sign off, do you need a rush on the transcript?
Standard turnaround.
All right.
Thanks
Got
so
it.
much.
Thank you very much. You all have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lori, for all your help.
Thank you. All right. Looks like people are signing off.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.